you know a lot about what this happened in Maine. Just give us your analysis here, Wayne, of what went down.
Well, sure, there are a lot of questions, and thanks for having me. The biggest one is, what happened a few weeks ago when he turned himself in? Why did they, for psychiatric treatment, why did they keep him only 2 weeks? And I predict that's because the insurance money ran out. So here's a guy who was asking for help, and we didn't keep him in. The other thing is, he made threats against a U.S. military base. That would have been a perfect way to charge him and get him in there to get him some help. So I'm concerned about that. I don't think it's going to end well for him or unfortunately, for the good law enforcement people that are going after him. So that remains to be seen.
So Wayne, how did this guy not get flagged? I mean, he's in a mental institution. He's committed. The FBI knew about him. Where was the breakdown, Wayne?
Well, who knows? We'll find out, hopefully. John, Maine has what they call a yellow flag law, which is sort of like red flag laws. In other words, if you're involved in some mental crisis, they have the ability to collect up your firearms during the time that you're in the crisis. And they didn't do that. So, like so many things we see with schools, Uvalde, Parkland, Sandy Hook, there were a lot of failures here.
So, I mean, what if you were running this op for the FBI and you were looking at this, and you've got a lot of experience in this, Wayne, that's why we had you on today, and you were this guy's file came across your desk, what would you have done? What would you have done differently, Wayne?
The police interviewed him. They should have escalated that, gone out and spent some time with him, got him some help, and talked to him about the voices in his head. And the main thing is collected up his firearms and his access to firearms. That would have helped, and put him at some place, committed him until he was better, not booted him out in 2 weeks because the insurance money ran out, if that's the case.
Booting him out is one thing because insurance runs out. Having him keep his guns is another thing, right? I mean, you have a record now in the United States of everyone that has to buy a gun because you have to get cleared. So they knew he had guns. They knew he had weapons. I mean, it's inconceivable that somebody like this would not get flagged. And so, Wayne, it begs the question, okay, what exactly is the FBI doing here, right? I mean, I know they're in Richmond, where I am today, monitoring Catholics like me going to Latin Mass and saying the rosary. I get that, right? That's their top priority. But when they see something like this, and it just falls through the cracks, and when we saw the when we saw the video the other day of law enforcement talking about this, and the local law enforcement people seemed really competent. They seemed really on it. The FBI representative seemed clueless. Was that just me?
No, you're right. Did you see that local law enforcement spoke openly off the cuff, and the FBI had to read from a little script and seemed afraid? Yeah, they have to get the priorities in line. It's not about parents at school board meetings, which is one of the reasons I wrote the book, or the Roman Catholic Church monitoring that. They need to get their priorities in order for sure.
Wayne, tell us a little bit about your book.
So the book is called School Insecurity, and I thought about it after Uvalde and Parkland, and the book is basically for parents and grandparents. My school assessment checklist, I travel around the country doing school assessments, is in the book. So they can take that to a school board meeting and ask, what are you doing to protect my child? And that really is what it's all about. Like you mentioned on the vote, like you mentioned about Mike Lindell, same with schools. If we don't stand up, and as parents and grandparents, and make sure that the schools are protecting our children, more shootings are going to happen. I'm positive of that. So it's really about protecting the kids.
We can protect Wayne, how do you combat now what we're going to get, which I said in my opening statement, my opening narrative, over the next 72 hours, this barrage of gun grab legislation. All the Democrats and communists coming out. We have to take your guns. We have to take your automatic weapons. They're going to call it weapons of war. We have to take those. You can't have ammo, etc. How do you combat that?
That happens every time, doesn't it? You heard the vice president already talking about that. Look, I don't think we should take advice from an administration that armed the Taliban with $80 billion worth of our firearms that are now ending up in the hands of Hamas against Israel.
Well, listen, I agree with you 100%. Wayne, I want to thank you for being with us. Again, people want to buy your book. Where do they go?
At my website, wayneblack.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Books A Million. It's really inexpensive. It's 150 pages of a guide for parents and grandparents.